Enugu. And we have been having conversations with the most amazing individual, Joseph Edgar. But sadly, he is not in the country today.
not in the country, not in the studio.
It's not in the studio. It's not in the country. If it's in this country, it's supposed to be here. But
so we decided that we should go to another country too.
Yes, touch base with an author. You know, we've been doing authors before.
Yes, we started out doing authors. We started out with Nigerian authors, and we've talked a lot about Nigeria. But Deep Dive is not just about Nigeria; it goes above and beyond. So today we're gonna go out of Nigeria with an author. Of course. And this one kind of hits close to home for me because I did mention that I did a course on my final year project on this author. Stop rolling your eyes at me, please.
Because yes, you did final year project on this author.
When you were doing Awonko, did I complain?
No, Awo was just something that because of my class, or was it my class?
Don't mind our family. This
my
is our
school
family drama.
I think it was.
Favor, how
why
are you
love
coping?
Awo.
I'm gradually fitting in.
Awo was something close to my heart because Obafemi Awolowo house was where I was. The house of my,
did I roll my eyes? Did you see me roll my eyes?
No.
Exactly. Point
blue
made.
house. That's the reason why I would even meant anything.
Okay,
but it's fine. I like his glasses, by the way. That's another thing. But yeah, so many other things.
This whole thing. With
this man's name is something to behold. But he's such a fine man. Oh, he
is a fine man.
He was. He passed on in 2003.
His name is Amadou Kuroma.
Amadou Kuroma. He is a writer, an Ivorian novelist.
Yes.
Ooh, from Ivory Coast?
Yes. Cote d'Ivoire.
Oh, Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. I know. I mean, that's my next stop, though.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done that
place.
one yet.
You're looking to do.
Yeah.
Because I mean, is it visa free for Nigerians? Cote d'Ivoire. I think so.
It should be.
Because it's not too far from Ghana, I hear.
Amadou Kuroma is our focus today. He was an author. He lived in the years from the 24th of December 1927 all the way to the 11th of December 2003. He was an Ivorian.
Mm-hmm. That's a long time ago.
I know.
Well,
he died at 76. Yes.
He was the eldest son of a distinguished Malinke family. Amadou Kuroma was born in 1927 in Bundiali, Côte d'Ivoire. He was raised by his uncle. Mm-hmm. He initially pursued studies in Bamako, Mali, by the way. From 1950 to 1954, when his country was still under French colonial control, he participated in French military campaigns in Indochina, after which he journeyed to France to study mathematics in Lyon. Oh, mathematics. It be the science students doing the most with writing. That's amazing.
And then he decided to return to his native Côte d'Ivoire after it won its independence in 1960. Yet he did find himself just questioning the government of Félix Houphouët-Boigny. And after he was imprisoned briefly, Kuroma spent several years in exile. First, he went to Algeria in 1964, all the way to 1969. Then he went to Cameroon in 1974 to 1984.
I think the Cameroonians did a good one on him because he spent 10 years there. And
then
went to Togo from 1984 to 1994.
Another 10 years. Then he finally returned to Côte d'Ivoire. Now, his goal was to try to speak up against betrayal of the legitimate African aspirators at the dawn of independence. And he was drawn into an experiment in fiction. His first novel, Le Soleil des Indépendances, which is the Sons of Independence. And Sun is Sun, S-U-N, of Independence 1970. It was it contained a critical treatment of post-colonial governments in Africa. And then about 20 years later, he did his second book, Monnier, Outrage et Défi. It was a history of a century of colonialism, and it was published in 1998.
I'm thinking about something now, the Sons of Independence, S-U-N-S. It's like the rising of independence in one and the falling of another country. And I'm like, That is so deep. Must have been so deep for him to think about the name, and then I want to see all the stories.
His books are a lot of his books are either trying to tell you something about the history and the Africans and the government and how things, did not favor Africans as much, and how Africans were taken advantage of in one way or the other. He published En attendant le vote des bêtes sauvages. Basically, it's like waiting for the wild beasts to vote.
Right.
He did. So
it was a satire of post-colonial Africa in the style of Voltaire, with elements of the Epic of Sundiata. Mm-hmm. I mean, he recounts the story of a tribal hunter's transformation into a dictator, inspired by President Eyadema of Togo. I remember that president. In the year 2000, he published Allah n'est pas obligé.
Allah n'est pas obligé.
Okay, Allah n'est pas obligé. Yeah, translated, Allah is not obliged.
Yes, so it's like Allah is not obliged to explain or sort of. I want to give you the whole sentence in English because it will give you perspective. There's a way it's put. It's God is not obliged, or Allah is not obliged in this case, but it's also said to be, let's see, yes, Allah is not obliged to be fair about all things he does here on earth. It's a very deep book that covers the story of the war in Sierra Leone and basically the war in Liberia and all the way.
It was basically a tale of an orphan who becomes a child soldier when traveling to visit his aunt in Liberia. Oh, reminds me of Beast of No Nation.
Such a deep book.
Beast of No Nation. Have you seen that? Yeah. The movie.
It was such a deep book. The boy was 10 years old and started his journey. He was sent away from his home. He was sent to his auntie's place, and on the way, the soldiers, child soldiers and adult soldiers, caught the bus. I'm sorry, this story is going to be very deep, but they caught the bus. They pulled everyone out. They killed some. This is when the Charles Taylor, time when that war was on, right? And then they cut the bus. They pulled people down, and then they were asking people long sleeve or short sleeve. They cut your arms. Yes. It was bad. And then the pregnant women, the children, these young soldiers, they call them child soldiers. They'll ask them, do you want, they'll be saying, that's a boy that's in the stomach. No, it's a girl. It's a boy. It's a girl. Let's find out. They will literally tear the woman open and bring out the child and laugh over it and say, I told you it was a girl. I told you it was a boy. I'm not kidding. Let me tell you, when I did the project, my project was on the book. And I took the subject of, it was called La guerre et la violation des droits de l'homme, which is the war and the violation of human rights, which took me through this book. I also met a librarian that watched his grandfather, amongst all other family members and relatives, killed. They dug a big hole and just poured all the family members, all the community members that died, and buried them in that place. Then there were BBC reporters that covered the war, and we had videos. I had video clippings that I had to take pictures from, and they were horrid.
They would have been.
Child soldiers will bring out a heart and eat the heart raw and say that it will give them power.
What?
I think one thing we also need to do on Deep Dive is go into all of these issues or these wars.
What caused the war,
how it started, how it ended, and different individuals that may have been pivotal in ensuring that maybe independence came, like Kwame Nkrumah. I'm doing something on him already.
So a lot of these the stories that this man, he was such a notable person for the kinds of stories that he told and the kind of information he shared. This Birama situation was pretty much a full real story. Yes, of one of the child soldiers. And you will hear words like Kalashnikov, which is their gun, at those long guns at the time. You will hear a lot of things about it. I hope I can do justice to some of the conversation in the course of it. But we'll read an excerpt of the book as well. Now I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, at the outbreak of the civil war in Cote d'Ivoire in 2002, Nkrumah stood against the war as well as against the concept of Ivorian nationalism, calling it an absurdity which has led us to chaos. President Laurent Gbagbo accused him of supporting rebel groups from the north of the country. In France, each of Kourouma's novel was greeted with great acclaim, sold exceptionally well, and was showered with prizes, including Prix
Renaudot.
Yes, in year 2000, and the
Prix Goncourt des Lycéens.
For Allah
n'est pas obligé.
N'est pas obligé. Now, in English-speaking world, Kourouma has yet to make much of an impression, despite some positive reviews. His works remain largely unknown outside university classes in African fiction. Allah is Not Obliged received its first English translation in the year 2006. So he's been writing in French.
Yes.
He writes
all
in
his books are in French. Yeah.
At the time of his death in Lyon, Kourouma was working on a sequel to Allah n'est pas obligé, entitled
Quand on refuse, on dit non. When one refuses, one says no.
One says no. Yeah. In which the protagonist of the first novel, a child soldier, is demobilized and returns to his home in Côte d'Ivoire, where a new regional conflict has arisen.
There's so much to Amadou Kourouma, and I don't know that we can
get into all of the details.
Get into all of the details about Amadou.
I love it when people go beyond, because some people think it's fiction, but these things happen. These things have happened to individuals, and someone is writing about them from their own perspective. I take, for example, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who wrote about Half of a Yellow Sun. A lot of people didn't exactly think that it was an actual story. In fact, the Gen Z tell you, it's just a book. It's not just a book.
It's not just a book.
It was an actual happening in Nigeria. And we need to have more people write about these things and talk about them. And that's why Deep Dive exists.
Yes, just absolutely. So you know. Now, Amadou Kourouma, and a lot of his books were notable, like they said, in France, in French-speaking countries they were taking very seriously. And that was why people needed to translate the book into English.
So that people that don't speak English,
don't speak French, a hang of it. And yes. Well, I don't know what to tell you about this man and not to tell you. I'm trying to hold myself, because when I read the book, how did I get to read the book? I had already given my supervisor about 5 different topics, and the first supervisor was fine with, I think he picked one. Then, I told you about Madame Mojola.
Yeah, you did.
This is the only thing I love this woman for. And she was a very interesting woman. Madame Mojola came and said that the topics I took, she didn't like them. They weren't good enough for her, so she threw them out. Because they moved, when she came on the 1 year...
I would say sabbatical.
Sabbatical, that's it. Sabbatical. She came on 1 year sabbatical from Ife, Professor Mojola. When she came and, they moved some of us to her as our supervisor. And then she saw my topics and she was like, yeah, I don't like them. I gave her 5 more topics. She said she didn't like them.
Again.
So I kept coming to her, but she wasn't available. When she now was available, it's too late. I said, ma, Esma, I've been coming to you and giving you topics. What do I do? She said, there's only 2 weeks before exam starts. I will deliver. Just let me. I cannot become a non-graduate because of. So she said, okay, there's one lecturer in Ife. Go to Ife and see him. He was a professor. He looked the very Wole Soyinka kind of professor.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to Ife, and it was only one friend of mine, Philemon Ojeoyi, who I knew in Ife. And I said to him, I'm coming to Ife. I remember that there was some kind of, I don't know if I call it a riot or some sort. But I arrived because I just needed to get on with my project. I needed a project to get onto. And I remember going to the man. I was told about him, and he's very particular. French speaker, your French had to be impeccable talking to him. So I had, entered my French head. My French brain was active when I went to him. We had some talk. Not quite a patient person, but he was like, okay, so this and that. Okay, so what options? And I gave him the different options, and he says, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you a book. Go and photocopy it and bring it back to me. And then by the end of this weekend, by Monday, pick a topic and bring to me. This was a Thursday. I arrived Ife. I photocopied it, brought the book back to him, and he said, on Monday, I should call him. I took that entire weekend. My French was not the best final year, English, Nigeria, hello. And but I read through that book in French. You will stop, you will look for a word, you got to look for the word in the dictionary and come back. And it gave me such a deep, I inserted myself, I immersed myself in this book. And at the end of the reading that weekend, I came up with violation of human rights. And I proposed to him, and he was like, okay, call it war and violation of human rights, which is what I now called my project. That was my project title. And by the time
you talking about this reminds me of Badagry, because that's my final year project, and
that's where I did
it's taking me back to all of the things I had to do to get to write and then do recording, because I had to go a notch higher to doing a proper documentary, going to Badagry, filming, editing, doing the voiceover and everything, putting together for my final year project.
Wow. It was such a tough time for me, and I did it. When I put pictures, like I told you, I got the librarian friend. How I met him was just chance and God. And then I had to get the videos, and I had to take picture clips from the videos. And when I put it in my project, my professor had looked at it and said, oh, no, some of these are too gross. So she had to, we had to remove, I think I had 9 pictures, and we reduced them to 5. She gave me an A. External supervisors, when they look at the project, the external supervisors will come and, secondly, you do a second reading. They doubled down on the A. That's how good it was.
Oof.
But it gave me an overview of that era and how crazy it was, and how these people were moving from town to town, and how these child soldiers came to be. At that tender age, they were introduced to all sorts of things. They would make them swear with charms, saying that they would not leave the profession. They had one big guy that would be Baba. They'll have girls that...
If you have not seen Beast of No Nation, that's not even... I wouldn't say it... It's not as gory as what you have said, because these things, if we want to put them into plays or put them into movies, it's horrific. Like, you would watch it and literally break down and not even know what to do for the next 1 week, because you're thinking to yourself, people had to go through this, people had to watch their family members die.
It's not a sight
from the hands of someone else that they could have lived longer, but because someone decided that their life was not as precious as you deemed it. Well, 0705-6900-927 is the number to call to be a part of this conversation.
Right.
We're talking about this author Amadou Kourouma, who is Ivorian from Cote d'Ivoire, and he wrote this beautiful book. Oh, he has written quite a number of beautiful books.
He has. He actually wrote French books for children as well.
Oh, wow. He did?
Yes.
How do you come from that?
Well, he wrote about 9 books for children, which is interesting.
Which is quite interesting.
And at some point in time, there was a lot of internal trouble that led to the civil war in Ivory Coast. And Kourouma then returned to Lyon. Already he had, authored these children books, and then he promised his daughters that he would write more about the fate of children in this country, being Cote d'Ivoire. His wife and his children, survive him. Yeah. But he did pass on.
11th of December 2003.
It's taking you all the way back.
I know.
I remember reading the book and finding it quite hard to read through. He had a lot of controversies around him, right? But in all of that, he surmounted those controversies, and his books still speak for themselves today. Okay, so we're going to, at some point really soon, read some excerpts of Allah n'est pas obligé,
and maybe even look for something that maybe his voice or something that he said.
Yes.
Yeah, if we can. If we have enough time to do that, we have all of that set up for you, but you can be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
I may not know who he is, but okay, let's see.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, beautiful ladies.
Hello,
Hi.
good morning. What is your name and where you calling us from?
Onyebuchi.
Onyebuchi. It's great.
How are you? It's been a minute.
Ooh. No scrambled network, Onyebuchi. You may need to call us back.
Onyebuchi, please call us back.
Onyebuchi's an author, by the way.
Yes.
He
was supposed to. Did he DM you?
No, he didn't. He hasn't done that yet.
So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be looking some more into Amadou Kourouma and going into the book Allah n'est pas obligé, aka God is not obliged.
The more you listen, the more great music you hear.
92.7 Super FM.
See, everybody with him own wahala. Every day comes with its own version of challenges, and you have to be ready to face them, because only then can we move on to the next. That's why I never miss my breakfast. Scratch that. My peak breakfast, with the nutrients and energy I need to face each day, one challenge at a time.
Every day is a good day to power on with the Peak Breakfast. Have you had your peak? Reach for your peak.
These are the sons of God. Hallelujah. These are the manifestations of God.
You've been searching for answers, longing for a word. Something powerful is coming your way. Christ Embassy presents the July edition of the Love World Radio Crusade with Reverend Ray.
This is the hour, this is the time. So you can sing for my Ray.
A moment of truth, power, and salvation, healing, divine direction, and the move of the Spirit like never before. Airing on the station, Friday, 11th July, 6 a.m. Are you believing for the fruit of the womb? Trusting God for marriage and family blessings? Seeking success in your exam or breakthrough in your business? Longing for peace in your heart or healing in your body? Answers are coming to you right where you are, at home, at work, on the road. Don't miss the July Crusade, happy 11th July at 6 a.m. on this radio station. Tell someone to tell someone. Your mornings is here.
Hi. If you're thinking about financial freedom today, tomorrow, or even retirement, and a future that is financially secure amongst other things, join us every Monday on Super Safe, improved and sponsored by Access ARM Pensions. It's every Monday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. only on Super 92.7. One family.
Have you been looking for avenues to reach a global audience? Would you like your business to reach your target audience and people from all walks of life? Call our commercial lines 0816-4193-677 or walk into our office at 31 Bishop Oluwole Street, Victoria Island, Lagos. Put your business on blast on Super 92.7 FM, your one family, one radio.
It's more than just a sound.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Your companion, your mood booster, and your source of great vibes. This is Super FM.
Unkulunkulu by Kamompela, 92.7 Super. Why did you laugh? Unkulunkulu. We had to do some African folk song there. 92.7 Super FM. The One Family, One Radio.
If you're just joining us, we started out talking about Amadou Kourouma, an Ivorian novelist and playwright who wrote in form of French and basically scandalized the
establishment and affected French colonial policies that were in place at the time.
He spent his early years in Guinea and attended secondary school in Bamako, in Mali, and then got expelled. drafted into the army by the French. He was sent to Indochina, and served in Saigon. Later, he continued his education in Lyon, in France. He became an actuary in Algiers, and he entered an insurance and banking career in France and Quebec.
Oh, when he was on exile? Yes, that was when he...
Look, the guy he satirized African politics and otherwise commented on post-colonial life. And as a result of his writing, he spent much of his life in exile. He was probably the best known Francophone African writer in France and was sometimes referred to as the African Voltaire. Voltaire was a very big name in France for his satirical writing. Oh my gosh. It's like we have to find the problem about Voltaire. Voltaire is such a you cannot talk about literature without Voltaire. Voltaire is such a big name in French literature. So if Amadou Kourouma is likened to be African Voltaire, that is such a huge accolade. I know that the Favor's looking at us like, did you think anything about him?
Oh yes, I think in his writings, I think these are things I've read about him and what you've spoken about him. The honesty, in his writings and how he tells real stories, as opposed to fictions, and not necessarily being scared of the Western.
He was
criticism.
He was on exile.
Yeah,
he must have written something that actually troubled people.
Exactly.
And satire laden, critical of hypocrisy, political illusions. That was why he was called the African Voltaire.
Oh yeah.
And major themes around colonial legacy, post-independence, disillusionment, dictatorship, child soldiers, and African culture, cultural authenticity. So he was all about that. Well, let's get into some of the things that are about this man. See, an Ivorian writer. It takes on the unfortunate tendency for African countries to slip from the iron grip of colonialism into less than tender hands of brutal dictators. This is from the book Waiting for the Wild Beasts to Vote. Yes, this was all of the intricate details that you need to know about what this book is. And we also see that over 6 nights or vigils, this storyteller named Bingo takes us through the life of Koyaga, the president dictator of the fictional African country of the
République du Golfe.
Yes,
Gulf Republic.
What she says. Recounting the great man's feat to a small select audience consisting of a group of famous hunters and, of course, the president himself. Now, this Donsomana or panegyric allows us to learn all about Koyaga while also providing insight into the wider history of the African continent in the second half of the 20th century.
Someone's calling us. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's Alpha back.
Onyebuchi.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll find the other line. It wasn't coming today.
Okay.
Apologies. Go ahead, talk to us.
Yeah. I love the topic you guys brought this morning. I love the book. Like, me personally, I'm a very big fan of history. You understand? Yeah. I would just say something about this. Like when we talk about wars, how the extent which people will go in terms of trying to maybe savage a country or hold the land. Something came to mind. Have you ever wondered what happened at the Biafra War? Yeah, that's like when I went into, when I did a deep dive into that Biafra War, it wasn't a good one at all. And it's just as if sometimes when I look at what's really going on right now, it just kind of makes me feel like you are trying to repeat history the second time. Looking at what happened that it doesn't go with at all, like reading about that, knowing about over 1 million people died. You know, when you have to kill people because you want to get rid of people, you want to control some certain region of a country, it's really heartbreaking what the extent which people will go. Like, I can't imagine, like, over a million people. Can you imagine, like, standing and watching millions of people being killed? Who does that? Who does that? Okay, take a look. Over how many years now that war has been fought, people died. Yet, that singular song of freedom is still echoing in our ears every day. Okay, despite the killing, the fighting, the bombardment and all that, have we signed? So I just feel like it would have been better if we haven't even fight the war in the first place. There are better way of doing things. But today, look at where we are. People died, yet because it's being forceful. Are we even having a better country today? I would rather live in a small country where I will have still the impact of governance than living in a bigger country where I'm not even feeling governance at all. You know, you better have a small country where you know that you wake up, there's healthcare, there is rights, there is at least even when you are broke, you don't have anything. You know that country, there are food banks. You get, look at where you are today. Despite over 1 million people being killed, yet you are not getting it right here. So what is the interest of the war in the first place? I did watch Shooting Dog about the Rwandan genocide. I wish millions of people being killed, yet is Rwanda even better off today? So we must learn from history and never allow history to repeat itself.
I agree.
Exactly. That's like over 1 million people died. Whenever I read about that, it really breaks my heart. And I just never allow history to repeat itself. People should just do the right thing.
Thank you.
That's my take for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you
very much. So I want to tell you something about this story. So the way that the story is way that it's reflected that the war started in Liberia, there are two monumental people that led to the war: Samuel Doe and Charles Taylor.
Yeah, we know about Charles Taylor.
Now, it was at that time, so this is how it was depicted in the book, and I hope memory serves me right. They wanted to overthrow the white people. So they came together, Samuel Doe's party or people, and then Charles Taylor's people. And they said, you know what, let's get rid of these people. It was said, and this is how the story, if I remember clearly, how it was shared in this Allah n'est pas obligé. I keep trying to remember. God is not obliged. Allah is not obliged. I have to remember it the right way in English. But it was said that they came together and they wanted to get rid of the white people. And they did. But what now happened was that one party, it was said that Charles Taylor's party decided to also eliminate the other party. So the two clans came together to get rid of the white people, and then upon rejoicing, they were at the beach talking together, and then there was a slaying to get rid of one clan.
One clan, yeah.
Unfortunately, a few of those people from that clan escaped, but they thought to have gotten rid of everyone. And that's how, because I think Samuel Doe took authority when the white people left. So there was that was the beginning of it all. And so when those guys, the ones that escaped, they escaped and equipped themselves to fight back. And that's where the war started, according to the story that I'd read in that book. And I remember how it really got so bad. They were searching for Samuel Doe to get rid of him. It was a really, I'm trying not to give you everything because I think that you should, the point of this is for you to be able to go back, pick up
the book and read. Yes.
Speaking about picking up the book to read.
You have to have like a French dictionary with you because
you can do the English version.
You can do the English version, but it's a French dictionary because I'm saying some things that are written in French. I'm like,
So I would try to, Gifted God is going to help me here, and Phoebe is just going to enjoy this entire process. But we'll try to read it, and I will jump in when there are words that are a little too heavy, because again the book was translated to English, but there's some expressions that you can't take away from the initial language.
Like this for sure.
Which one? Oh, fecher.
Fecher. You can see what she does with him. Well, I mean, this is reading from Allah
is not
obliged
by Amadou
Kuhoma. When Maman died, Bala said that it wasn't because her soul had been devoured. He knew because he was a marabout who knew all about sorcery, a feature with the power to detect soul eaters. My grandmother explained that Maman had been killed by Allah with just the ulcer and all the tears she was always crying, because Allah up in heaven can do whatever he likes. He doesn't have to be fair about what he does here on earth. That was when I realized that I'd hurt my mother, hurt her really badly, hurt someone who was crippled. She never said anything to me about it, but she died with all the hurt in her heart. And now I was cursed and damned, and I'd never do any good here on earth. I'd never be worth anything to anyone on this earth. I might tell about Maman's death some other time, but I don't have to. And you can't make me. Fufura. I haven't told you anything about my father yet. He was called Mori. I don't really like talking about my father. It makes me sad in my heart and in my belly. On account of how he died without ever growing a wise old man white beard. I don't talk about him very often because I never really knew him. I never really spent any time with him on account of how he died while I was still crawling around on all fours. Next page. Okay. Bala the healer, who was the person I spent all my time with. He was the person I loved. Fortunately, Bala the Fetcher knows lots of things. He knows magic, and he's traveled all over the place hunting in Côte d'Ivoire, in Senegal, even in Ghana and Liberia, where the black people are black Americans and where the indigenes speak pidgin. Over there, that's where they call English. Isa is my uncle. That's what your father's brother is called. After my father died, my mother belonged to Isa, and he was supposed to marry her. That's the tradition of the Malinke tribe. But no one in the village wanted to hand my mother over to Isa because he never came to see Maman in her, and never looked after me. And he was always saying cruel things about my father and my grandmother, and even my grandfather. Everybody thought that the tradition didn't count. And anyways, Isa didn't want a wife who walked around on her earth with her rotting legs stuck up in the air. According to the laws of the Quran and of religion, Maman was not allowed to stay married for more than a year of 12 moons. She had to be properly married with a proper dowry of gods.
Okay. Maman had to say something. She had to decide. She had to choose. Maman told grandmother that Bala was the only person who came to her heart day and night, and he wanted to have a marriage with a proper Kolonot dowry with her healer and Fetcher Bala. When everyone heard, they howled and they yapped like a pack of mad dogs. They were all dead set against the marriage because Bala was Bambara Kafir, who didn't perform the 5 daily prayers and didn't fast during Ramadan. So he couldn't be allowed to marry a devout Muslim like my mother who performed her 5 daily prayers religiously every day. There were speeches and readings from the Quran, but in the end, Maman and Bala went to see the Imam. That's what you call the old man with the white beard who stands up in front of everyone on Fridays and holy days and prays, and sometimes even does it 5 times a day. The Imam told Bala to repeat Allahu Akbar and Bismillah over and over. Bala only said Allahu Akbar and Bismillah once, and after that, everyone was happy for Maman to have her marriage with the proper Kola knot dowry with Bala. That's how Bala got to be my stepfather. That's what your mother's second husband is called. Bala and Maman had a marriage en blanc. which is like a white marriage. Even if the man and woman getting married are black, they both wear black clothes. If they never do sex together, then it's a white marriage, a marriage en blanc in French. It had to be a marriage en blanc for 2 reasons. First, because Bala had all his gris-gris round his neck. Gris-gris is charm. Round his neck and down his arms and around his belt, and he refused to undress in front of a woman. And second, because even if he took off all his gris-gris, he would never have been able to make babies with Maman on account of he didn't know any father's techniques. Or he didn't know my father's techniques. My father hadn't had time to teach Bala the proper gymnastic way to wrap himself around Maman so he could insert the babies. Seeing how Maman walked on her arse with one leg stuck up in the air on account of her ulcer. My dad, he made 3 babies with my mother, my sister Mariam, my sister Futuma, and me. My father was an important farmer and a devout believer who always made sure that Maman had enough to eat. Grandmother said my father died in spite of all the good deeds he did on earth, because no one can know the will of Allah, and because the Almighty up in heaven doesn't give a and does whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to be fair about everything he decides to do here on earth.
My maman died because Allah wanted her back. The Imam said that a devout Muslim isn't allowed to criticize Allah or say anything bad about him. Then he said that my mother didn't die of magic. She died of her ulcer. Her leg just kept on cutting away at her because her musukorone and her son died there, and no one left who could heal it on account of it wasn't a disease that could be cured in a 2-bar hospital, and because the time Allah had accorded her on earth was up. Then the Imam said that what the filthy old kafir had said was not true. He said it wasn't true that Maman used to magically eat away at her rotting ulcer at night, but it didn't placate me, and I started crying for my mom all over again. Then the Imam said that I had not been kind to Maman. In the village, the Imam is the marabout with the big white beard who stands up on Friday at 1 o'clock and leads the big prayer. So now, I was really starting to feel sorry for what I had done. Even now, it hurts. It burns my heart every time I think about Maman's death, because I think maybe Maman really, really wasn't a witch and divulged souls, and that makes me remember the night she died. When Maman started to rot away, to really rot away, she sent for me and squeezed my left arm really hard with her right hand. I couldn't escape and run away and be a street kid that night, so I slept in the blanket with her, and Maman's soul left her body at the first cockcrow. In the morning, Maman's fingers were holding onto my arm so tight that Bala and my grandmother and another woman had to use all their strength to drag me away from my mother. Wallahi, that's the truth.
Everyone cried and cried on account of how Maman had suffered so much down here on earth. They all said Maman would go straight up to heaven to be with Allah because of the hardships and sufferings she had known down here on earth, and because Allah didn't have any more hardships and sufferings left to give her. The Imam said that her spirit would be a good spirit, a spirit that would protect the living against troubles and evil spells, a spirit that should be worshipped and commemorated. Now, Maman is in heaven and she's not suffering anymore. So everyone down here on earth is happy, except me. Maman's death makes me sad. Even now, it makes me sad. Because the accusations that the old kafir men said were just lies. They were bare-faced lies, and I had been a horrible, cruel son to her. I hurt Maman, and she died with that hurt in her heart. That's why I'm cursed, and the curse goes with me wherever I go. Namokodi. So this is a scene where he starts to talk about his mother,
mom, his dad.
His mom was said to be a sorcerer who was eating souls. but then by this kafir men. And so he stayed away from her because they said that she was basically killing
and she
people.
had an ulcer. They say that she was eating herself.
So because of that, so when his mom died was when his stepfather sent him away to his aunt. And that's where the story really begins.
Of his entire
journey. Going
to be a child soldier.
Yes. It was Sierra Leone, it was Liberia, it was Cote d'Ivoire. And these boys, these kids were moving, these child soldiers, girls and boys, were moving.
Girls inclusive?
Yes.
Wow.
Girl child soldiers, boy child soldiers were moving from place to place. Like I said, they would literally go and look. Back you people, put you on one short sleeve or long sleeve. And if they say short sleeve or long sleeve, they're cutting from your elbow, sometimes from your wrist. If they like you, if they just feel good, they'll cut you from the wrist. That's long sleeve. Short sleeve will be your elbow or your shoulder. And if a woman is carrying a child on her back, they will cut the woman and then they will ask her to decide short sleeve or long sleeve for her child.
What?
And even if you decide, they will choose the one that is in their favor. I gave you the instance of, and this is not thing. They had AK-47s. AK-47s are Kalashnikov guns invented by the Russians, so you can shoot and keep shooting and never stop. With the AK-47s, the small soldiers got everything. They had money. They even had American dollars. They had shoes and stripes and radios and helmets and even cars that they call 4x4s. I shouted, Wallahi, Wallahi, I want to go to Liberia right now, this minute. I want to be a child soldier, a small soldier. Child soldier and small soldier is a kif. That means it's the same difference. In bed, when I did poo-poo or pee-pee, I shouted out, small soldier, child soldier. They literally inculcated the idea of being a child soldier for these kids. And
power into children's hands.
It was a very...
Have you ever seen Beast of No Nation? Favor?
No. Oh, you need to, darling.
You should.
But if you don't like horror, don't do it.
If you don't like horror, don't. If you don't like when I was watching the entirety of that movie, I'm like, this is someone's life. This could have been anybody. Because guess what? Even the Tutsi and Hutus, a lot of things that happened. One girl, there was in a school, there was a scene where there was a school where they had come and they wanted to kill a particular sect. And then they were like, if you're Hutu, stand up, you're Tutsi. All the girls in the class stood up, whether Hutu or Tutsi, because it was such a, people were going to lose their friends. I said, you know what, let's all just go together. And all of them were wiped out at once.
Oh, in the same vein, child soldiers will go to the schools that you had, the girls' schools and schools for nuns. They will go there. They will kill them. They will rape them. They were going from place to... Like I said, they started Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire. They were just moving like that. The war was one that took a long time. Of course, Nigeria stepped in at some point to save the day, literally. Well, I guess our time is up. Time is not our friend, though.
I know.
I wish we could share some more about, but you should get the book. Allah is Not Obliged.
Yeah,
that's the name of the book, in case you want to ever read it and find out the stories that we have just shared with you. But Amadu Kuruma is a writer that will never be forgotten and said to be an African Voltaire.